my allergies have kicked in, and I'm battling laryngitis, something fierce. So I'll do my best. If you can't hear me, let me know, and I'll try to make some adjustment.
Honey.
I think I've had about 40 of them.
That's funny. I take care of it. I got the same deal.
Number two, just for fun, how many of you have any kind of an idea what's going on at Oak Island? You heard of it? Have you? Some not. There you go. We're going to talk about that. There's a lot going on, and there is all kinds of speculation, which if you've seen the TV show, you kind of get an idea of this happened, that happened. Nobody really knows what happened. I'd like you to bear with me as we go through this. What I'm going to try to do is kind of go down the center of the bell curve of what we think has gone on there and what all this speculation amounts to. If you would, please, for me, put one word in front of every word I say. Allegedly. Because nobody knows what's going on at this place. You may be more confused at the end than you are right now. This, I didn't start this because of the TV show. But of course, people have called and asked if I've seen it, which I have. It started for me about 10 years ago. Big hit movie came out. You probably saw it, you certainly heard of it. The name of the movie was National Treasure. And in the movie, Nicolas Cage played Benjamin Franklin Gates, and he figured out that somehow there was a map on the back of the Declaration of Independence. He stole the Declaration of Independence, and the movie was a series of bad guys chasing good guys and good guys chasing bad guys. And if you haven't seen it, I have to spoil it for you. They found the treasure. It turned out the treasure had been stowed away by the Freemasons, who happened to be the good guys in the movie. So I go to work. I was the only Freemason working there, and therefore I was the odd guy. You know how that goes. And so they, Steve, where do you Masons have the real treasure buried? Give him the standard answer, Oak Island. There were three things I did not know about Oak Island. I did not know where it was. I did not know what was supposed to be buried there. I didn't know why we were saying there was something buried on Oak Island. And in fact, I didn't know why we were picking on the Masons and saying that they had buried something there. Other than that, I was an expert on Oak Island. What I would like to do today is kind of answer those questions. First question is the easiest question. Where is Oak Island? Oak Island is about 40 miles southwest of Halifax, Nova Scotia. It is so tiny, you can't see it on that map really, but it kind of points to the location. It's also about 175 miles east of Bar Harbor, Maine. It looks like that, which is why I've got that stupid little symbol down in the lower right-hand corner of the slides. And as I said, it's probably about 1.5 miles long by 1 mile wide. And that's all there is to it. And that is, as small as it is one of the most studied pieces of land anywhere. So we answered the first question. That's where Oak Island is. What is supposed to be buried there? This is only a small sampling. Some people think the Ark of the Covenant might be there, the Holy Grail, the Templar treasure, Solomon's treasure, which may be one and the same, I don't know. A few other things might be buried there. And as we'll find out later on, there's one more thing that might be buried at Oak Island. Absolutely nothing. Just There's a legend associated with Oak Island that says, before you know the secret of Oak Island, before you find the treasure, no oak trees will be left on the island. By the way, oak trees are not indigenous to Oak Island. The second part of the legend says that 7 people will die trying to find this treasure before you find it. To date, there is 1 oak tree left on Oak Island, and 6 people have died trying to find that treasure. That's the stone, the monument that they have to the people who have died there on the island. Well, now we got 2 questions answered, so maybe it'd be an early lunch. Or not, because the rest of it is the big story about Oak Island. There's a lot to it. I think Betty Davis once said, fasten your seatbelts, it's going to be a bumpy ride. Beginning at the beginning, one day in 1795, a young lad was walking along on Oak Island and he found a grove of 3 trees. And in the center of the grove was a depression. Above the tree that came out across the depression had a branch hanging out, and there was a block and tackle on it. He's a bright kid. He said, there's something down there. So he went and he got 2 more friends, and together those 3 guys started digging. And they dug down about 3 feet, and they found, covering that entire depression, they found a layer of flagstones. They knew they were onto something. They got the flagstones out of the way, and they dug down 7 more feet, and they found a layer of oak logs, like that right there, across the bottom of the pit. And now they really knew they were onto something. They got the oak logs out of there. They dug down 10 more feet. They found another layer of oak logs. They got them out of there. They dug down another 10 feet, and they found another layer of oak logs. About this time, they did what anybody would do. That is backbreaking work, and they gave up. They weren't going to go through that anymore. The hole sat for 8 years, and one of the guys, Anthony Vaughn, had a contact at a company named the Onslow Company. And after all that time, he went to them. Onslow was an excavation company, and he told them what he had found there. And they thought it sounded promising, and so they followed him to Oak Island, and they set up their equipment, and they started digging. And one of the first things they found was coconut fiber, which in that day was used as packing material. So they kind of thought they were onto something too, since the nearest coconut tree was in Bermuda. They didn't think it had grown on the island. They moved on. They continued to dig down, and every 10 feet they found the same layer of oak logs, until they got to the 90-foot level, and they found a flat stone, and they took a crowbar and kind of pounded on it, and they could tell it was hollow underneath that stone. Things get more exciting for these guys. They pulled up the stone, took it to the surface, and when they did, I'm going to get my buttons right here. This is what the stone looked like. It had a cryptic message on it, which of course nobody at that time could decipher the message, but they were just sure that this was it. They were going to go back the next morning, and they were going to find the treasure. The next morning, they went back to the hole. Oh, before I do that, this particular stone is a replica because they can't find the original stone. There is speculation that one of the workers took it home and used it for a hearth on his fireplace, but the original stone is gone. Many years later, they deciphered it and think that the message says, 40 feet below, 2 million pounds lie buried. So these excited workers went back to the hole the next morning, and that's what they saw. It had filled with water. I can't believe they tried it, but they started taking buckets and pulling the water out of it. They worked for quite a while, and it did not go down 1 inch. As we'll find out later, it's connected to the sea. Every bucket they took out of there, the sea put another bucket in for them. What they had found was your good old-fashioned booby trap. And people have figured that the booby trap works like a soda straw. We all learned in 8th grade science. You put your finger on top of the straw, you dip it down in the water, you bring it up, everything's dry inside. You dip it in the water and let your finger go and bring it up. Now you got water inside the straw. Same thing happened here as water came in from the sea and then filled the hole that they had dug. So now they've got a 90-foot hole full of water. They did what any good, wanting to make a profit company should have done, probably. They also gave up. So now we've got a hole full of water, a lot of interest in the hole, but there's not too many people willing to go see what's there, and we have to take a look. What I'm going to do, in the interest of time, is sort of 200 years in 2 minutes. A lot of people have gone there to try to figure out what's at Oak Island. 3 famous Masons got involved. Richard Byrd and John Wayne both formed companies and went to Oak Island and tried to dig up the treasure. More interesting, probably, Franklin Roosevelt went up there twice, and he maintained a lifelong interest in what was going on there. This is Franklin right there with the pipe in his days before polio. 2 times he went up there. As they have drilled over that period of 200 years, we'll go over a few more things that they found, but significantly, at the 125-foot level, they found 3 small gold links of chain. Then at 153 foot, and by the way, they found this out by, of course, drilling a core, because the water's still there. And when they brought it up, at 153 feet, they found 7 inches of cement. Then at 156 feet, they found this piece of parchment treated with mercury, which meant somebody was trying to preserve it. And on down at the 160-foot level, they found 7 more inches of cement. Think about what that would mean. Cement, parchment, cement. Their speculation is the cement is a vault. It's got this stuff in it. They also found, out in a cove called Smith's Cove or Smuggler's Cove, which we'll have a better map later, it's located right there. They found some box drains. Speculation on this, as it applies to the hole that's in the ground, is that this is the tunnel that feeds the booby trap. Other people have thought it might have something to do with the salt works. They also found, right at the mouth of each of the drains, they were stuffed with coconut fiber, which people think was supposed to act as a filter. Near the entrance or the surface of this hole, they found a stone slab with an iron ring in it. More, as you can read, more stuff that has been found there, more things that have happened there, some things we might want to highlight. There are the times that the workers were killed. In 1965, 4 were killed in one day when they were down in a hole that they had drilled next to the hole. But you can't go down the hole because it's wet. And some sort of gas escaped and killed all 4 of them. Another interesting thing they found in 1850 was that beach that we were talking about, where those box drains are, is not a natural beach. It's an artificial cove. That is located right there. So that's kind of a map of the island. Here's the main dig. Here's the artificial beach. We'll talk about these other things in a minute. But somebody got the bright idea. If there really is a booby trap that goes from here to the sea, it probably, they weren't positive, but they thought it goes to Smuggler's Cove, the artificial beach. They poured red dye, a lot of it, down the hole, and they said, if that red dye comes out right there, we got ourselves a booby trap and we've got a tunnel to the sea. Well, they poured the dye in, and it came out right where they thought it was going to come out. That's the good news. The bad news, it came out there, and it came out there. I only saw one report that said it came out right there, but I did see one. Now they're speculating that there are two booby trap tunnels. Or the scientists around the area are saying, well, the rock is just porous. So, again, they don't know exactly what's going on, but they do know there's something leading from the sea to the flooded tunnel. There are more theories about what is buried at Oak Island than there are Masonic bean dinners. It ranges everything from the Mayans, Incas, Spanish treasure, you can read it up there. One guy thinks it's just a sinkhole. A lot of speculation that it's Captain Kidd's treasure. Captain Kidd is a pirate who was hung, but his crew said they were never anywhere near Oak Island. Who knows? We'll get to the Masons in a minute. There is one more theory, actually two, that you need to know about. And how can we have a real conspiracy theory without space aliens? There are two space alien theories. One I'll tell you about now, and another one we'll talk about in just a minute. The one is that space aliens landed, and if you look at the structure of the pit that's there, they built a remoleculizer for their purposes, whatever they might be at that spot. What is a remoleculizer? Well, anybody knows it's the receiving end of Captain Kirk's transporter. So that's a theory that you probably want to keep in mind. Let's talk about the Masons. I keep walking in front of you. Let's talk about the Masons. So we all know that there is or is not a link between the Freemasons and the Knights Templar. Well, the link kind of is that, well, we'll get into it in a minute. The Templars were organized, I guess as we especially learn in the York Rite degrees, to protect pilgrims on the way to the Holy Land. They were warriors, they were fierce, they defeated their enemies. When they defeated their enemies, they took their riches, and the Knights Templar became very, very wealthy, very powerful. They had a lot of money. They instituted Europe's first banking system. Kind of worked like this. You're going from Paris to Rome. You don't want to get robbed on the way. You take some money to the Templars. They give you a voucher. You get to Rome. You go to the Templars. You give them the voucher. You get the money. Probably had some faults in the situation, but it's an early form of traveler's checks, I guess. Don't leave home without it. So here you have your rich, powerful Knights Templar. And in comes a guy, King Philip IV of France. They called him Philip the Fair on occasion. He was not fair. He was a nasty little guy. And number one, although by the time he came in, the Templars were not quite so powerful militarily, they were still powerful within the church, and they still had all that money. And Philip wanted to get rid of them.